Sorry, please, can you please see my screen?
Yes, we can see and it's clear. Thank you.
All right. So,
So,
good evening, everyone.
all right, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Prof. Yeah, my name is Justin Bry. I'm currently the grant support manager at the Center for Reproductive and Health Studies in the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. So, I'm happy to be here, and I hope we're able to learn a lot. So, is my screen still being shared?
Yeah, we can see. If there's any issue, I'll call your attention. Thank
All
you.
right. So let's start. So what is budget? It's important to know that budget is just more than numbers. A grant budget is a direct reflection of your program design and a key indicator of your financial planning capabilities. When you submit a grant request, the reviewers look at the budget to ensure that your plan is realistic, you can justify it, and is directly aligned with the program goals. A strong budget increases your chances of approval. Then, what are the first steps to take? The first step is to lay the foundation. That means early planning and the template. Number one, you have to start early. As soon as you see the funding opportunity and announcement, you should start building your budgets as soon as review. Because I know most times people wait till the end to do their budget, thinking it's just something they can just write numbers against requests and think, okay, it is fine. But that is not the case. It's important for you to start early. The another thing is to understand the guidelines. Then you have to identify the maximum and minimum award amounts, what is allowed, anything that's prioritized or anything that is discouraged. This basically means trying to understand the grant amount. Let's say the grant is for $5,000. That means maximum amount your budget can entail. So to ensure you work behind that. Then the third one is to create a template. That is the use of Excel or Google Sheet formula. This further provides a template. Use it, adapt, or if you're in an office or an organization, you can adapt their standard. Here in NIMA, we make use of an Excel sheet. And the Excel sheet is what we use for everything, either for invoicing or for budget, anything that has to do with numbers, we use Excel because with Excel, there's already a template for you. So it's just for you to slot in the numbers and immediately the math is being done. So this tries to eliminate any mistake by trying to use your phone to press 2 times 2, now press two plus two by mistake. Then you now have issues with your budget later. So use of Excel is highly advised. Then when after you have laid the foundation, the next part is to make research and estimate the costs. You should try not to guess, especially when you're dealing with like prof say like land travel, like travels or other equipment. You don't just guess any amount because they see so many grant requests, so they have an idea of how much things are. It's not anything new. So you base your estimate on a market research, past data, vendor quotes, and current rates. Then you calculate all in costs. That means you should understand and include both direct and indirect costs. I will explain later the difference between direct and indirect. Then research in parallel. That means you began researching costs for staff. If there's any equipment or supply, you start doing the research while you are still drafting all other parts of the grants. Then step three is this key budget categories. This is for the direct aspect. For the direct aspects, the three major categories sometimes are the personnel, equipment, travels, and training. When dealing with personnel, that is the human labor, payment of human labor, that is salary, wages, or benefit paid to everyone that will be working on the project. And it involves, you have to clearly define the role, what this person is doing, if person is research assistant, if this person is the PI or lab person or data collector. You have to clearly define the roles of each person and their rates. Then for equipment and supply, you differentiate between the major capital equipment and consumables. Ensure your budget is realistic based on your need and past usage. Then the third one is travels and training. It must directly align with your project objectives. You can't put you are traveling to so place and it does not have any direct linkage to your grant, or sorry, to the project you want to do. So why doing this, you must ensure there's a direct linkage between them. And sometimes it may include like training program in case you want to go to a training that feels it to help with your project. Those are part of things you put in budget. Now, this is kind of a breakdown for the personnel cost. For personnel costs, like I said, this is human capital. So now the first one is salary and wages. You have to detail the specific roles, the hourly rate, the annual salary of each team member directly contributing to the grant. Ensure these figures are consistent with the organization established compensation policies and local market rate for similar positions. Like if you're working in an organization, you can just go and look at their rates that, okay, PIs, what is their rate? It may not project A be different from project B based on the type of funding. But just for you to understand, okay, how much for this type of grant, how much do they allocate for this, and for that. Another one is effort and time allocation. You have to clearly define the percentage of time each individual will dedicate to the projects. This effort must be directly justifiable by their proposed activities and responsibilities based on the project scope. You should avoid vague descriptions. This time and allocation, let's say you work for 40 hours a week. So we are now saying from these 40 hours, how many hours are you allocating for this grant projects? That's where you now get the percentage. If it's 8 hours, that would be if your person is allocating 100%, that means person is giving 100%. If it's 80%, you put it there. Most time you just okay, you write it there. Okay, it is 40%, 50%. It must be justified. You can't say someone is like the PIs. Most times the PIs they don't have their time allocation most times is not usually high because they believe they have other activities that they are doing. So most times it can be 0.8 or 0.6, depends. I was trying to explain the efforts and time and allocation. Each person in a project won't give the same effort and won't give the same effort and use the same time. The PI most times they don't use the same time allocation compared to someone that is working with the data or in the lab because each role have different effort and time allocation. So it's important for you to define their effort. That is basically how from their working hours, how many percentage of that time are they giving to the project. Like I said, for another part is the roles and qualification. For each funded position, you have to briefly outline their key responsibilities and necessary qualification. That is to show that the right people are in place to achieve the project's goal. Then to briefly understand the effort and time allocation. Effort refers to the amount of time an individual dedicates to a project, typically expressed as the percentage of their total full-time equivalent, that is FTE work. For example, 0.25 FTE means 25% of the person's working time is allocated to the grant project. Then the importance of the education. If every percentage of effort must be directly linked to specific project activities outlined in the narrative. When they are reviewing it, the reviewers most times they look at those allocations to ensure they are reasonable, necessary, and aligned with the proposed work plan, confirming personnel are neither under or over utilized to ensure there's a balance in their effort and their efforts. Then the accuracy and consistency ensure that the sum of effort for all personnel perfectly matches the project's requirements. Inaccurate or inconsistent effort percentages can signal poor planning or undermine credibility and lead to budget cuts or rejection. Earlier, I spoke about direct and indirect. So let's look at the difference between direct and indirect costs. When I'm dealing with direct costs, these are expenses that are directly attributed to a specific grant project and can easily be identified and measured. They are essential for the immediate execution and success of the project activities. For example, salary, materials, travel expensive, or consultancy fee. Now, the indirect costs, F&A, they are most times they are called as most times known as facilities and administrative costs. They are expenses incurred for a common or joint purpose that benefits multiple projects or the organization's overall operations. They cannot be readily assigned to a single project. This includes admin fee or accounting staff salaries, utility bill for shared office, rent, or general IT. Most times for the grants we have, the NIH grants, this F&A is usually 7.5%. And 7.5 is in all the grants we have. This 7.5%, it goes to NIMA, the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, the host institution, to cover, like, let's say their utility bill, so that we could not be writing to them that, okay, oh, we spent so money on lights or all those things. No, they expect it should just be under indirect costs. So we just put it as indirect costs. We don't explain, we don't give any details. I don't know if Prof can talk about it later if there's, and if most times you put it, but in our own side of things, we just put it as indirect costs and is a standard 7.5%. Like I said, this is just a diagram to explain it. Project staff, equipment, project materials, travels, the rents, admin support, general office supplies. Now, this is just a chart showing the cost, like what the salaries, the key person. So you have to first notify there's going to be a key person, that is the PI. The PI's salary stands on his own to be the first one on the budget, the PI, that is a lead. Okay, this is how much the person is getting, this is the effort. Then other personnel. So you now list other personnels and their role. If it's the lab person, you put it. If it's data collector, you put it. If it's a grant manager, you put it. So that will be the second layer. That is other personnel. Then if you are buying any equipment, you put it. Then travels, training support, or other direct costs. That in case you want to publish any materials and you need funding, you can put it there. Then to now get your direct costs, you add up everything That is from A to F to get your direct costs. The indirect costs is there. So when you now add up your direct plus your indirect costs, that will now be your total costs for the budget. Direct plus indirect will be the total. It's important to ensure you use Excel sheet. Like if you have an Excel sheet, like I said, you cannot put salary, PI, then the other personnel, you put it, equipment, travels, you just put from column A to column B, add up, you get your direct. Your indirect, it depends on the percentage. If it's 7.5, you do 7.5 of the total um, budget that was given in the FOA. Then you now add it up with your direct cost to ensure that you are not going above the total amounts available. So when you're looking at cost solution, you have to ask yourself what is allowed. What is allowed? That means you must be reasonable. Cost must be compared to what a prudent person would incur in a competitive business. Excess or inflated costs will be challenged during the review. We have to remember that in this, when you're submitting a grant, there are many people submitting, and it's tax, most times it's taxpayers' money, or if it's private. So they're not just going to give out money without looking at your budget to ensure what you are requesting, what your plan is reasonable. You can't say you want to buy office. Okay, if they give a budget of let's say 5,000, say you want to spend 3,000 to travel. Question is, where are you going to? That you need so much money. Then what now happens to the other key things that you may need? So you have to ensure it is reasonable. Then a necessity, must ensure that all costs must be essential to the research. Luxury items or costs that could be covered by other funding sources may be deemed unavailable. So you should not look for. I feel most times you should not look for the most expensive material. Sometimes you look for the best in the normal market rates. Like I say, it's important to know the market rates. So ensure every cost is necessary and essential. Then the allocatability, that means the cost must be directly assignable to grant projects. Shared costs require appropriate allocation methodology consistent with institutional policy. If you are working in an institution, you have to follow their policy, because most times most of the requests come through the institution. Then consistency, costs must be treated constantly across all funding sources. You cannot change. You cannot charge a cost to federal grant if your institution normally treats it as indirect cost. Like I said, things like utility bills, you want to pay the account of officer in the institution, or any other things. Those ones, they go into indirect costs. So you have to ensure that costs that are made for indirect should not be under direct, or direct should not be under indirect. So you have to be very careful when dealing with that. Then the next step is budget justification. You have to justify each cost. If you are giving the PI, if the PI is getting X amount, you have to justify it. Most times you justify it using the FT, that is the effort. If you are buying X machine, you have to justify why you need to buy X machine. If you want to travel, you have to justify, okay, this is why I need so amount to travel. This budget justification comes after the budget. After you have created your budget table, then under it is budget justification. That means every amount that will be spent, you have to justify why you need that amount. like I said, for every direct cost, you have to justify each and every one of them. You can't just keep on and say, oh, they will know that I need to do X, Y, Z. That's why it is there. No, treat it as if they don't know what you are trying to use it for. So you explain it and justify it well, why the cost is necessary and how you achieve that. Then for any cost that is large and on that is not normal, like unusual, sometimes you can provide quotes, vendor price, or supporting documents to show, okay, this is the reason why this for this amount is higher than the usual. Because like I said, they sometimes they know the market cost of all these things. You cannot write an X amount. Because sometimes when we submit invoice to them to get our money, sometimes they send email to query them that why is so test this X amount when in our record we have it for this. It happens a lot. They usually challenge some some of our invoice because they know this is X amount. Sometimes we have to now explain to them that okay, oh, the current exchange rate is affecting this and this. So we're always ready with proper justification of every cost when the prices change. So you have to be ready to provide evidence in case it is needed. Then you connect to outcomes. You demonstrate how each budgeted cost directly contributes to achieving the project stated goals and activities. For example, like I said, if you want to travel, if you're writing money to travel, explain why you need to travel and how it helps with the project goal. Or if you are buying X materials, how does it help you to achieve your goals? Like even for simple printing paper, paper to print, we have to justify why we are buying paper. Yes, that is how sometimes they're like that. We send invoice or say, sometimes they'll send us the budget amount and say they'll send us the award amount and say we should send budget. So we have to justify, okay, we're writing for paper, that is office supply. Why do we need it? We put it there. So it's important to explain every dollar amount or naira amount that you want to spend. Then best practice is better for you to do not over or under budget. Realistic budget means the reviewers can detect on unrealistic budgets. Over budgeting can lead to surplus that must be returned, while under budgeting can force programs cut. Show your work. That's you have to have accurate calculation and clear justification, which are key to demonstrating financial prudence and building reviewers' confidence. If it's an NIH program, you have to remember those are taxpayers' money. So you have to justify why they should give you the taxpayers' money, and you have to prove to them that you are a good spender of the money. I am not just going to waste the money. So it's very important. Then common pitfalls to avoid on allowable costs. You have to familiarize yourself with what funders deem unallowable to prevent rejection. Review the FAO carefully before finalizing your budget. Most times in the FOA, they put their budgets, the things they allow and what they don't allow. Sometimes they won't give you a form to fill. So it's important for you to read it very well to know what you can include and what you cannot include. Another one is in inconsistent formatting. You have to adhere strictly to the funder's specific formats and guidelines. When you don't do that, it shows lack of attention to details. So some of them give you a specific format for you to follow. This is the format to follow for the budget and the guideline. So if there is, you have to ensure you follow it strictly and vague. justification, lack of details in the budget narrative is the common reason for the rejection. Like I said, every line item must be clearly explained. Then your budget is a testament to your project viability. You have to demonstrate the capacity. A well-prepared budget showcases your organization or your capacity for strong financial management and the feasibility of your proposed project. Then build funders' confidence by planning, researching, and justifying every expenses. You build confidence with your funders and pave way for successful grant acquisition. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much. I have a lot that I've learned from the session, and I'm sure that the participants already have their questions or clarifications, and they've learned a lot from it. So very quickly, before I take questions, I think one thing that resonated even from the preamble we did before the session started is have a realistic budget. Do not over budget or do not under budget. And the second key thing that I think I want to share is that you must be able to explain every number that appears on your budget. You can't just put a figure and just think the funders will overlook it. With that, I would ask us to use the virtual hand to, if you want to speak, please use the virtual hand here. Any question? Any question? Anyone? All right, if there are no questions, then okay, Anifa, yeah. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Justin, for the class. When you were speaking about indirect and direct costs, you mentioned that there is a seven indirect cost have to be 7.5% of a particular cost. I did not understand which of it is going to be the factor you're going to be multiplying by 7.5. Is it the total budget or just the direct cost? I'm a little bit confused there. Would you please shed more light?
Okay, Anifa. I think Mr. Justin can take that while we wait
All
for
right,
other
thank you.
questions.
Yeah, this like I said, the 7.5 is based on our institution, based on the type of grants we get in our institution. It's usually 7.5, that is the NIH funded grants, that is like the D43 and the rest. It's usually 7.5% of the total amount. So let's say it's $5,000. That is 7.5% of $5,000 is already your indirect cost. For example, so that means the remaining 72.5% is what you're going to use for your direct cost. Sorry, the remaining 92.5%, sorry, what you use for your indirect cost, for the direct cost.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm also aware that I think the values, like you mentioned, the value changes based on the funder. Some will have 10%. Yeah.
Yes, I think Prof should be able to shed more light on that.
Okay,
I'll just
Prof,
leave
would you
him
want to come in?
this.
Yeah. She's
Apart,
on the
yeah,
okay, yeah.
I didn't hear. There was so much noise. I knew you
Yeah.
asked, but I didn't hear the question.
So the question is about the percentage for indirect costs. And
Yeah.
yeah. So you had
So
mentioned like
I think
7.5. Okay. Go
yes,
ahead.
I think I heard that and it struck me because Justin said for NIMA they do 7.5. I know for my own institution it's 10%. But there are other places that depends on the grant. Institutions might also tell you what it is. For example, I know Harvard, their own Harvard, John Hopkins, and the like, their own indirect cost is 40%. And that's you must also recognize that this indirect costs that also support the institution to grow. There are some grants that will say no, no, zero. I think EDCTB grant allows for about 5%. There are some grants they say no, no, no indirect, especially the small ones like the 5,000, 2,000, they don't allow. So you have to read instructions like everybody has said over and over again. You have to read instructions to know what is allowable and what is not allowable. Thank you. Over.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll just follow up on that based on one of my experience of recent, and I'm directing that to Prof. I'm aware that some ethics review boards adjust their review based on whether you have a grant support and the amount of your grants. Is that appropriate, ma? Yeah, like
One of the things I know is that grants, they respect what your institution says. So if you know that your institution will collect $500 or $5,000, you put it now in the budget. You accommodate into the budget. The thing is for you not to spend outside what is your budget. If you knew your institution will collect $5,000 and you didn't budget for it, and many of those things is, the institutional support, the institutional policies that say things. For example, quite a number of times, I remember when I was working through an NGO, once you do things outside Africa, your salary doubles. So you can't write 9,000 naira salary for Nigeria, and then when you're doing America, you're writing 9,000 naira. It's double or triple or something like that. And they've asked, and then you have an institutional policy that has the authorities to say this is the operations, and then they obey. That is the big thing about those outside. They obey what the institutional policy says. So if the ethics committee is $5,000, write it. If that's the institutional process, personally I'm okay because institutions need to make that money. When you see things like Harvard, Boston, Massachusetts, they are not living on government subvention. They're living on grants. This 40%, 30%, that's what these institutions are living on. So imagine in your institution, there's 1,000 staff and 1,000 of them have grants and 10% goes into the university. Of course, they don't need money from the government. That's what it should be. So once it's a policy and not a regular, it's okay. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. So I don't know if there's any other question or comment from the participants. Dr. Taigbe, any comments?
No.
Okay. So I think one key thing that also came out of this conversation is that you need to do your costing well ahead of your application. So you should spend time. It shouldn't be one after the other. You should do it in parallel. Meaning that you are writing the narratives and the content of your scientific components, you're also doing costing to know what it will cost. And that will also speak to the question and asked about you seeking clarification about the cost of ethics review and all of that ahead of your application. I have a mentee that got a RSTMH grant recently, and it got to the point where it needs to start implementing. And when the ethics committee came up with the costs it will take to review the project is working on, it became an issue that we had to, interact with the persons on grant to help us address the issue. So one of the things the mentee would have done earlier is to know what it costs and put it into his budget ahead of time. So I think from my end, we've had a great day with Mr. Justin taking us through the different aspects of grant management and budgeting. And if there are no questions from any of the members, I think I should give us back 10 minutes of our time to have a lovely weekend. And join us on tomorrow's call as we go into writing abstract and responding to journal reviews from publishers after submission of manuscripts. Thank you very much, Mr. Justin, for your time. And sorry that we had to interrupt your journey home.
No problem.
Do arrive home safely. And we really appreciate your input on this conversation, on this training.
Okay. All right. So I was thinking, do I need to drop my email in case anyone has anything, don't reach out. Or
Oh, that would be great, please. Thank you very much. Can also share. So we've been given a open ticket, a blank ticket to reach out to Mr. Justin whenever I need clarification on all of these things. I'm sure by the
so
time you start
I've sent it to the chat. Yeah.
okay, yeah, I'll get it across. By the time you
Okay.
start writing, you start seeing some things that you are not clear on, you can always reach out to him. He's going to be of help. With that, I say good night, everybody. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.